advisory space. He's been a top producer in his own industry as an owner and now as a sales trainer. We're going to explore the collaboration that can happen between the wealth management space and the real estate space. It's going to be an episode that you're going to want to pay attention to because there's actually gold at the end of this rainbow. There's actually opportunities as you begin to collaborate with other professionals. And today's episode is going to be a stark reminder of that. We're excited to have you here. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great episode.
Well, thank you.
So the big question is this: how do those of us in the real estate industry who have crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we create success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard. This is my co-host Stephanie Peck. And together we bring you the Think Bigger Real Estate Podcast. And I'm without my lovely co-host today, but I'm excited to be here with Jim Effner. Jim, thank you for taking time to be on the Think Bigger Real Estate Podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Jim's in a lovely part of the world that I just got to visit this past week outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. And Jim and I got to know each other. And I'm excited to share kind of your experience, Jim. If you wouldn't mind sharing with us your story. And again, for the audience that's listening, you're going to want to pay attention to this because we're going to get into how to collaborate with other professionals in general. That's how Jim built his business in part. And so we're going to get into that. But first, let's hear your story, Jim.
Yeah, well, a quick version of my story is right off the college campus in 1989. I came into Northwestern Mutual to be, at that time, what was referred to as a life insurance agent, right? Today, now it is a wealth management advisor, a financial security planner. You know, it goes by a lot of different terms, but back in the late 80s, it was the life insurance business, and then it emerged into the wealth management world. And I did that in the field and built my own clientele every single year for 12 years. I was in the top 2% of the Northwestern Mutual's field force. So I was successful right out of the gate. I worked hard, I had a lot of fun, and did a lot of great things. And then I got into leadership, and I went into what's called being a managing partner, and I owned my own firm. It was in the Chicagoland suburbs, and I had 130 reps and all in about 400 people in that firm for 15 years. And then I sold that in June of 2015 and started this company, P2P, January of 2016. So almost 10 years, I think that is. Time has flown by. And my world now is really focused on consulting and sales training with a particular emphasis on the financial services industry.
You know, I love your story. I think anytime someone has success in an industry, it gets hard to not want to share how they built that success. It's almost, a friend of mine, Lou Raja, said it this way, is that once you take the elevator up, it's hard to not want to send it back down. Right? There's other people that are getting started in an industry, whether it be real estate or whether it be wealth management. And if they could just learn from somebody who's already done it, right? Yeah. Not have to try and figure it out themselves. And right. So I love the fact that you're pouring back into the industry. Would you say, Jim, that your ideal representative that you've trained, are they somebody who's pretty new in their career? Is it somebody who's maybe more experienced? They've just hit a bit of a plateau, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a very finite market. It's not black and white, but ballpark, it's after about their third year and before their 12th year. So it's 3 to 12 years. You might wonder why that is. The financial services industry has a high degree of turnover. And so, we're only interested in getting those reps that have already proven that they have what it takes to have made it in the business. And they now have proven that this is their career of choice. So they've done what they needed to do to say, I'm in the game full-time, long-term. And then, not too much after 12 years for two reasons. Number one, they get too set in their ways. They're not willing to change. They're not willing to adopt new ideas, new styles, new systems. And they're also too financially comfortable. If an advisor is very good at what they do, they build some considerable residual income. And so that 3 to 12 year period is where reps are really hungry. They're looking for ways to dramatically grow their business. They want to grow it. They're willing to do things that are tough and scary to do in order to grow it. And so that 3 to 12 year window, that was a long answer to your question, but that's about what it is. Now, are there exceptions? Yeah, there's some really successful studs that get off to a quick start, like after 12 months, they're ready to rock. And there's some people that are 15, 18 years that are coachable, but that's a general rule of thumb.
Now, Jim, I know that as we talked, I learned that one of the strategies that you had was collaborating with other professionals in other industries, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about from a wealth management standpoint, you shared with me some of those professionals with whom you had those relationships: private bankers, mortgage loan officers, estate attorneys. Who did I miss? Were those kind of the key ones, or were there more?
Accountants.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you approach those relationships, what did you do to actually turn those into more than just an acquaintance or more than just a business card exchange?
Well, we're going back. This is really going to date me now, my friend, but we didn't have technology the way we had. So imagine this is 1989 to 2001, okay, where I'm full time in the field. And at the end of the day, whether you are in the real estate business or you're a financial advisor or whatever, you're going to be really good at what you do if you have meaningful relationships with your clients, right? And let's take it a step further. Meaningful, deeply trusted relationships with your clients. You are a relationship builder and your clients trust you. And so, those are services that my clients needed that were beyond my subject matter expertise. And so, instead of going to the yellow pages or instead of just kind of finding somebody out of the blue, they trusted me to have vetted that process. And I said, well, if you need an estate plan attorney, here are the two I would recommend. By the way, they're my clients. And by the way, one of them does my estate plan, and then it was the same thing with the accountants. It was the same thing with the loan officers and so on and so forth. So through the trust that they had with me, you could leverage that to those people, and my clients appreciated that. And in addition, it also opened up a world for them, reciprocity, to collaborate with me when they had clients that they were doing their stuff with, their subject matter expertise, who needed financial planning and insurance planning. They would introduce them to me. So it was a healthy relationship.
I love that. I think that is a healthy relationship. Sometimes as real estate agents, we oftentimes feel like we are invited to a buffet. We bring the food and everybody else brings a fork, right? In other words, we go out and get a listing and there's 20 other professionals who, are essentially called into work at that point. And to find other professionals that collaborate the way you just described, where it's a healthy two-way relationship, becomes really valuable. That's one of the things that we've really created, on the platform that we built at Pro Insight. It really embodies, the principles in the book that I wrote called the Upstream Model, where you have professionals who are reciprocal, right? And it sounds like it was a two-way street for you. One of the best lines that I've heard: when you have a client and you're interacting with them and you know that they're going to need a good financial advisor, for example, right? And a good thing to ask is to say, tell me about your existing financial advisor. Would you grade them on a scale of 0 to 10? Would you grade them as a 9 or a 10? And if the answer is yes, then it's like, would you make an introduction? It sounds like this is somebody that I need to, that I want to be around and be working with.
Yeah.
And then if they say, no, definitely not a 9 or a 10, then it's a simple: would you be open to meeting someone who I would grade as a level 9 or 10? Now it's an easy intro to Jim, right? It's an easy intro to that financial advisor. And you're not trying to displace people who already have a good relationship in place. In fact, you want to meet those people too, right? You want to be around 9s and 10s.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like that's, again, one of the ways that you built your practice was in having those relationships. And some of the people are like, I don't know how to bring that up, right?
Yeah.
How do I feel like I'm not pushing my people? That's a really simple way, right, for you to do that.
That's exactly what you just did. Is exactly what I do in the financial services world. You gave somebody a track to run on, you gave somebody language, and when they get that down, which you just did in about 30 seconds, you can do it with confidence and expectation of cooperation. And that was a perfect example. And it's so simple. What you just did was so simple, but yet so effective.
Well, it was interesting, Jim. I was in a conversation with someone who's in the wealth management space. And yesterday he was telling me that his company is actually cutting commissions by 25%. And they're doing that because they're going to create an app that's going to compete with him. His own company is creating an app that's going to compete with him, that's going to go direct to consumer and be an all technology play. And I thought, my goodness, that's not very friendly right? You've poured your heart, blood, sweat, and tears into this company to build it. Now they're taking your own commissions to build your competitor. And I think in today's world, as professionals, we can't have our head in the sand and think that technology is not going to doesn't have the potential to negatively impact our practice. And I
Yeah.
think one way to ensure that we have a defensible value proposition is to have the fact that it's coupled with other professionals that also are nines and tens, right? Our clients could
Yeah.
go to technology at any moment, right? But
Yeah.
how could they if we have surrounded them with a team of professionals who not only are great, but collaboratively work together almost like a family office would for a very wealthy person, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
tough
No
value
question.
proposition to turn down.
Yeah, no question about it. It really is. And by the way, obviously, I don't know your business that well or anywhere remotely close to as you do. When I say that, I mean the real estate business. But in the financial services business, this isn't my age and old school mentality saying it. It's something that I believe to my core is that AI and technology is not going to replace the actual advisor. It's going to make their business much more effective. It's going to make their business much more efficient. It's going to give them tools that are going to make them better, but it's not going to replace them because financial services is a deeply, deeply emotional business and relationship. And it just is. And that's been my experience. And people need other people they can trust. And I believe that. So,
Yeah, it's interesting, Jim. And you probably know the accurate statistic. I thought I heard at one point that only 3% of the population actually has a financial advisor. Is that accurate? It's pretty
between
small,
one
isn't
and a
it?
half, it's between 1.5 and 3.
Yeah, and
That's scary.
if technology really solved all of the problems, then like that number would be much higher. The reality is it like you said, money is a very emotional thing, and it's not that
Yeah.
people don't know what to do. It's not that there's not access to good financial advice. It's actually
Yeah.
having someone in your corner to help you through the emotions of money management. Is that safe to say? At least that's how I see it.
That is very accurate to say, but there's a few other things as well that I would say before what you said, and that is that takes the time to get to know you, that understands your story, and that has demonstrated that they genuinely have your back and care about you, and it's authentic, and you can't fake that. Either you have that as an advisor or you don't. Either you are, well, I said enough. So the reality is that's really, really important. And when you have that, it's meaningful. And yeah, very, very, very few people have that. And I even think that percentage might be skewed a little bit because of the fact, Justin, that some people will call an advisor that I got a guy. Their guy was, they left their employer 5 years ago and had $500,000 in their 401k, and they hired a guy from a company that rolled in. They created an IRA, rolled it over, and they talked to him 5 years ago. They haven't met with him since. They didn't do a plan. They put him in some investments and they say they have an advisor, but it's not really an active, ongoing relationship. They bought some products at some point in time. So it's a huge need.
That's really insightful when you put it in those terms. I think it's and again, if there weren't money problems in our country, and I'm not saying just money problems, but people don't have enough, even those people that have plenty who are still living, at the edge of their income, right?
Yeah.
If that weren't a thing, then we might say, well, isn't really a need for
Right.
wealth management, right? Or if everybody who had earned enough money had plenty of money to retire on, again, we might say, is this industry really necessary?
Yeah.
It was funny. Just before our call, I was asking Grok, right, which is the AI built by Elon, which some would argue is as good or better than ChatGPT. I'm kind of testing them, both right now to see which one I prefer. And I asked a simple question of, and I should have been able to do this via mental math. It's gonna be embarrassing that I asked this question. I said, how would you convert 1.5 million MRR into ARR? And of course, it's multiply like the number 1.5 times 12, right? And this AI assistant responded and said, well, it's 12. And I said, and quickly in my head, I realized that I had, like, it was very simple mental math, right? It was 1.5 times 12. And this very intelligent, right, AI agent was telling me that 1.5 times 12 was 12. And I said, I don't think that's right. She said, yep, it sure is. And I said, you're telling me, and I'm going to have a conversation with my phone here, right? This AI agent. I said, so you're telling me 1.5 times 12 is 12? Oh, I'm sorry. it's actually 18. My mistake. And I thought, okay, yes, I know AI is a very powerful tool, but even in simple things like basic math, it totally screwed up. That had I not been like, wait a minute, that's not right, I would have I
Right.
would have missed it. Now, I would say in most cases, computers are pretty good at math, but what they're not good at is what you just described, was is actually feeling the feelings of being human and sitting across the table from someone else who's having those feelings, whether they're in high times or low times, and being able to build a plan that accommodates for those thoughts, fears, concerns, aspirations, right? That's hard for a computer to emulate. And so to your point, I think in these items that are so important, right? Now maybe they can get good at helping you shop for a new pair of shoes, right? And give you like basic advice that isn't as pressing as your entire financial portfolio or your real estate portfolio, right? Like
Yeah.
there's some things that might require, in my opinion, for you to get the best result, to actually have a human involved who's powered by AI, right? Who has the very best tools at their fingertips, but they're not replacing the human, which I think is a big mistake when people try and do that.
Yeah. And you know what? Just face the facts. I too do my research. I only use Chat GPT because that's all I'm familiar with, but I should probably check out the one that you said. But just the other day, I was doing some research. And what's interesting on the facts, because if you take an individual that on average is making 100 grand pre-retirement, and they want to retire at 80% of their pre-retirement income. So they want to have 80 grand until their life expectancy, which is today 87. So you take age 65 to age 87, they want to have 80 grand a year. You know what they got to have in assets? 2.5 million. So for every 100 grand that you make prior to retirement, so if you make 200 grand, you got to have 5 million. If you make 400 grand, you got to have 10 million. You know, so that's the simple math, right? But here's the facts. If you Google right now, not Google, but use a little bit of sophisticated AI, the average American who averaged 100 grand prior to age 65 has 535,000. So they're 2 million short, but that's average. Average is skewed by the high end people. So what you really want to look at is what's the median, right? The median is 220,000. So the individual that gets to age 65, that's worked their whole life, that's making 100 grand in our country, has about $250,000, and they need to have 2.5. So the point being is they're nowhere near close enough to having the amount of money that they needed, and AI and the infusion of that isn't going to make that difference. I mean, it's the touch of a master's hand of somebody who cares, has a relationship, who helps them avoid procrastination, excuses, holds them accountable, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, super good. All things that again are best influenced by another human that gets humans, right? That gets human nature. Because yeah, we as humans aren't necessarily predictable, and we tend to be more emotional, and it's hard to, when you're not a fellow human, to actually relate to that, right? We don't work in
Yeah,
algorithms, we
yeah.
work in
Well,
emotions.
it's also all kinds of things that AI doesn't understand. The pressure in American way is keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
You know, people have insecurity issues, so they solve those by wearing a purse or a watch or driving a car or doing something that's beyond their financial means to fulfill their insecurities, to create an identity that's not real. How's AI going to tell that? You know, so excuse me. The reality of it is that's the way it is. I mean, think about it outside of your industry, outside of my industry, go into the just personal health industry. America, United States, is the most obese, successful country in the world. And, you know, we have all kinds of access to information for nutrition, exercise.
Right.
You go to AI and say, hey, this is my age, this is my height, this is my weight, build me an exercise program and build me a diet. And it'll spit it out to you in 30 seconds, but yet those people are still fat, you know. So the reality is it's so much more than just information, right?
Totally. You know, Jim, I want to just hit on one thing that I promised here. And again, I uncovered this when I was actually interviewed a lot of Northwestern Mutual financial professionals. I said, how many opportunities per, like, or how frequently do clients tell you that they are preparing to buy or sell a property, right? And the answer came back to me, it was pretty unanimous. It was about, oh, probably, you know, more than one a month, less than two a month. So let's call it 18 per year. said,
Yeah.
fascinating. So 18 times per year, your clients are confiding in you, hey, we're going to make some changes to our real estate portfolio. And the answer like, yeah, that's about right. Right. And I said, how many of those opportunities do you refer to a real estate agent? Right. Do you bring up? And the answer came back like none. It's like, whoa, you're telling me there's 18 opportunities for a financial advisor to refer to a real estate professional, and almost zero of those times they actually get referred. And I dug into that a little bit. And one of the things I uncovered is that most financial advisors see themselves working very differently than a real estate agent. And I would say than an average real estate agent, right? What we've really trained in the platform that we've built, Pro Insight, is designed to help real estate agents work more like financial advisors. We actually pull for them their real estate assets under management. In other words, the total real estate owned by all their clients. And we show them all the details of that portfolio to where, as whether you're a real estate agent on our platform or whether you're a financial advisor on our platform, you speak the same language, like assets under management. Here's their assets under management in the market. Here's their assets under management in real estate, right? And so that was designed to help real estate agents be a little better, right? To be more on the same playing field. And instead of having past clients and closings that they talk about, they've got clients and they continue to serve them, whether they're buying their first house and or their last house, they serve them throughout their entire life. And so part of that has been designed because of the feedback I got from financial advisors, which is, yeah, I don't refer real estate agents. They just work differently than we do, right? We serve people for, their entire life, and you guys serve them for 3 to 6 months, right? And then you put them on your past client list. And so we've really worked to try and make these industries really work well together. And one thing that we've learned from financial advisors is that they really appreciate knowing in advance their complete client's real estate portfolio to be able to bring it up during their annual reviews, so they don't get that surprise call saying, hey, we're buying another property, please wire $500,000 out of our account. And it's like, boy, it would have been nice to talk about that, right? It would have been nice to maybe have a consultation to see if really you should be buying that in cash, or maybe we should, leverage some bank money, et cetera, right? And so anyway, that whole kind of paradigm we're trying to shift to where these industries, when people buy and sell real estate, there's a lot of money moving around. And if we can team our professionals up with a really great financial advisor that doesn't try and talk everybody out of real estate, right? Of course, there's a proper time and a place for all those different kind of assets, but a really kind of balanced portfolio, then we can really feed each other a lot of business, right? And that's really what we've strived to do. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, about having a real estate professional that maybe acted more like a financial advisor for someone's real estate portfolio. Does that sound like it would be beneficial to the wealth managers in the industry to have that kind of partner, would you say?
100%. But I also think that, we got to talk about the typical financial advisor. My guess is, based on listening to what you just said, the typical real estate person is in the same spot, but good. Okay. And I won't even go to what I would say would fall into the category of good. Wealth managers, financial advisors see their clients on an annual basis. They have a systematic fashion of sitting down with them once a year, call it an annual review, and thoroughly updating everything that's going on with them, keeping in touch with them, and building a very meaningful, ongoing relationship where the client feels that the advisor has their back and really cares, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 5%. I mean, I get financial advisors come to my workshops, and we've had thousands go through our workshops over the last 10 years, and the majority have no systematic process to keep in touch with their clients on a regular basis. So they work as a distributor of a product, not a trusted client counselor relationship that is meaningful. So for what you just said, whether you're in the real estate world or the financial wealth management world, if you have a deep, meaningful relationship with your clients / customers, and you are a well-trusted advisor, what you said is an unbelievable opportunity and brilliant, and should be taken more advantage of. I just wanted to say those, at least, I can't speak in real estate, but in financial services, are few and far between. They're like the top 3 to 5% advisors. They're not the general norm.
Yeah. Well, it's very
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. And it's, I think, helpful to hear that because, what I hear you saying is not all financial advisors are alike, right? Just because they carry even the initials after their name doesn't mean that they're truly, advisors, right?
Yeah.
Many of them work like real estate agents who have developed a bit of a bad reputation of being very transactional, right?
Yeah.
I'm in it to get you closed on this particular product, and then we're moving on, right? And
Yeah.
hopefully you'll come to me again when you have another product, as opposed to I'm gonna really build a relationship like you described earlier in the call, Jim, which is,
Yeah,
build a relationship and be there to guide people, to advise people. Right? I
right.
think that's where kind of the real value lies. And again, I don't think this is just a nicety anymore. I think it's becoming more and more a necessity.
Couldn't
That
agree more. And
that's
it's
how you have to work.
on top of it being good business, just on top of it being good business and being in the best interest of your client slash customer, it also makes your business a lot more enjoyable.
Mhm.
Who wants to
Yeah.
be a distributor of a product and just in a transaction, commoditized, price-driven world? I
Yeah.
want to be in a meaningful relationship. It's just so much more rewarding and the difference you can make. But
Yeah.
I also wrote a book, by the way. It's called Bridge Your Gap, and I'm sure it's the same thing in the real estate world. The book that I wrote in Bridge Your Gap, what's the gap? The gap is between the have and the have-nots. And what's so amazing to me is there are financial advisors out there that are super, super, super successful, make 8 figures, 7 figures. I mean, very, very successful. But then there's also a ton of financial advisors that are starving. They can't rub two nickels together, and they're on the verge of bankruptcy, and it's 100% commission business until you build the residual, just like real estate is. And there's real estate advisors that are super, super, super successful,
Yeah.
and there are real estate advisors, a lot of them that are starving. And it's like, why is that? It's the same product, it's the same community, it's the same. It shouldn't have to be that way. So when I wrote Bridge Your Gap, it's like, how do you get from that world of mediocrity to a world of abundance? And it's
And that's what you do. I'm going to put up your website here, Jim. Tell people what they will find when they go here, whether you're a financial advisor or a professional in a different industry potentially, right? You find value via your book and other things. What would be the most important thing that they would want to do on your website based on our conversation today?
Well, first and foremost, I think it would give them a more in-depth look at who I am, what I stand for, what our philosophies are, what we do, the difference we make. It would give you a really good perspective beyond just this podcast about what we do at P2P. There's going to be some videos on there that'll give you a little bit of our mission, our purpose, a little bit about how we go about doing what we're doing. But at the end of the day, it's about driving productivity to a financial advisor by dramatically increasing their skill set, their mindset, their beliefs. And we have very methodical ways we do that. And, there are in-depth ways that are the most intense. My reps come to me in my workshops. I do about 12 or so a year, and there'll be 30 to 35 reps in each one of those workshops, and it's spread out over a 6-month period of time. And all in, I'm with them for about 30 hours. It's intense. All the way down to for $50 a month, you could be a subscriber of our webpage. And, I've got over 350 videos that I've built with anything and everything I've ever learned in this industry, most of which are 2 and 3 and 4 minute long. And they can watch all those until their heart's content. So there's a wide variety of how you can have exposure to Jim Effner and P2P.
I love it. Jim, it's been such a pleasure to spend some time with you, learn more about your industry. And it sounds like we're very much on the same page as to how beneficial our two industries can be to one another. And it's maybe a kind of a clarion call to both industries or the professionals within that are listening to say, it's time to step up. It's time to be more for your clients. It's time to really have these annual reviews and be talking about not just your specific industry, but the other industries around them and bringing other great professionals to the table. I think all of that allows us to truly think bigger, right? Think bigger about our career, about the service we can offer to our clients. And again, that's what this show is all about, is helping you to think bigger. So it's been such a pleasure, Jim. Any final words before we wrap up?
No, I just appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure to meet you as well, Justin.
Yeah, likewise. Likewise, my pleasure. All right, to everybody listening here today, we thank you for tuning in today. And my final request is, well, 2 requests. Number 1, if this was valuable, please share it with somebody else. That's how we get the word out. And number 2, go think bigger. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, Jim.
You bet.